Alright, so we're back once again, and this time we're going to be going over in my opinion, the worst 3 battleships in the game. Last time we did cruisers, we touched on a couple of the cruisers that I thought were pretty horrific in the current state of the game. So today what we're going to be doing is going over the top 3 battleships, or not the top 3, but the bottom 3 battleships, out of all Tech 3 ships. So with that being said, let's get into number 3, and for number 3 I decided to do something a little bit different. Usually when I'm comparing battleships, I like to start from the higher tiers and take them from the higher tiers, but I thought this ship was just too goddamn bad not to put on this list. So with tier 3, it's going to be the Kawachi, the IGN BB. Now this ship is pretty horrific, all things considered. I actually just played a game of it just today, and oh my god, I've never wanted to leave a game so badly than I have playing this ship. And again, I could be aware that it could just be like my top tier bias. You know, when you play top tier so much, going back into lower tier ships is really hard, just because you have so much less speed, maneuverability, you know, accuracy, stuff like that. But this ship seems to stand out to me. I think it's kind of a leave-over from the back in the days when like Wargaming feared that too many people would rush for battleships when they first came out, and they wanted people to learn the game in cruisers because these seemed more like versatile and forgiving. And many BBs back then were pretty slow and had a long reload, so bad position and bad aim would hurt a lot more than in cruisers. So as a result, this made tier 3 BBs quite bad. Now, if you fast forward to today, this ship is still pretty much in the same position. It's very slow, has very bad DPM, and very, very bad accuracy. Again, it's tier 3, so you should kind of know you're setting yourself in for this ride. I'm just more pointing out I'm kind of pointing out to the fact that when you play other tier 3 BBs, it doesn't feel as bad. I mean, the French tier 3 BB, as I'm recently grinding that line, doesn't feel as bad as this. And again, that scenario I said earlier about, you know, when BBs are first being introduced to the game, that's gone. That's outdated by now. And the Kawachi's still suffering quite a lot as a result from that. It's still inferior to all the new BBs introduced since then. As I said, tier 3 isn't much of a problem nowadays because the grind's so short, so I don't see this getting fixed anytime soon, or this ship getting buffed anytime soon. And yeah, the grind's fairly quick, so again, it's not that much of an effort to have to grind through it. You'll get through it in a couple of games. So in combination, it's basically a complete amount of bad armor, bad range, bad accuracy, bad damage. It's bad everything. I keep going back to when it was around the time, a long time ago, but it used to have the advantage of always being able to have at least 2 turrets pointing at every ship, basically all around it. But now there's other ships that can do exactly the same thing, so again, there's no real advantage there. So get my overall impressions on the ship. The idea of playing the ship seems fine. You know, it's quick, it's tier 3, it'll be over quick. I don't think that fully compensates for the fact that the ship itself, you know, I don't think it absolves it from the, you know, total critiques. I mean, just because you're tier 3 doesn't mean you can't be criticized, or the ship can't be criticized. And the main thing I'm going to focus on is just the actual playing experience. It feels so goddamn bad. I mean, I don't want to say horrific, and I want to keep it within the context of being a tier 3 ship, but at the same time, this ship is glacial level slow. Basically, within the space of 15 minutes of a battle, you know, battles are 20 minutes long, but basically, you know, 5 minutes are actually spent playing them on a normal ship. But in like the space of a 15-minute battle, you'll spend about 7 minutes getting to the point where you can shoot something, and then you'll be dead after about 3 minutes, after hopelessly shooting at ships and finding out that your shells have such disgustingly bad accuracy and dispersion that you aren't actually able to do anything with them. And I guess that's the reason why the ship is pretty horrific overall. But that's enough about the Kawachi. I think I'm going to leave it at number 3. Again, the reason it's not higher on this list is because, again, it's a tier 3 ship, so there's only so high you can actually put it before you actually just start bullshitting. But I think that's the spot it really deserves, tier 3. Or, sorry, number 3. Holy, I'm getting mixed up. Okay, so on to number 2 in the list. So we're getting away from the low tier ships now, and we're going to head to the tier 9s. And you can probably guess the ship I'm thinking of right now. In number 2, the second worst battleship in World of Warships, in my opinion, is the Frederick the Grobe. The Frederick Grobe basically has 2 gun types, 16-inch and 16.5-inch guns. But the thing is that neither armament is actually all that useful. Even though the 16.5 guns are, you know, pretty decent for the tier, they reload really slowly. Whereas then you have the 16-inch guns that, okay, they reload really quickly, but at the same time, they don't really, you know, pack all that much of a punch. On top of that, she has 1 barrel less than our peers. So if you look at other tier 9s across the board, the Azumo, 9 gun barrels. I'm struggling to think of another tier 9 BB, maybe because I just got the Azumo recently and I've been playing it a hell of a lot. But yeah, most other battleships have 9 gun barrels. The Frederick Globe doesn't. It has 8, the same as the Bismarck before it. So when you add those two things together, it's actually pretty horrific overall. It wouldn't be so much of an issue if you didn't also get the accuracy issues that all German BBs have. You know, when you combine these three things together, it ends up making the ship feel very sluggish, very, kind of what's the point? So yeah, this ship's pretty horribly suited to the range game. The off dispersion is mind-blowingly bad. But again, I suppose the buffs recently did help a bit, but I don't think it absolves all the issues that this ship has. Again, it's a nice step in the right direction. There's definitely a lot more issues with it. And again, the rear turret angles are awful. You basically have to give complete broadside in order to actually basically be able to hit anything. So yeah, if you're going to be firing full broadsides, you better hope to God that either they're out of range, but again, you're going to have shit dispersion, so again, you can't use that. And if you're close range, you're basically going to get Citadel 2 or 3 times. Well, not Citadel because they have turtle black armor, but you're going to take maybe 10k salvos from each shell. It's really, really difficult way to play this ship, and I don't really know what the solution would be, other than just improving the angles on the guns. But yeah, in all seriousness, this ship's just a bigger Bismarck, and her protection scheme has the exact same issues. Really large superstructure, really, really long turning circle, 940 meters. So you're going to have to take into consideration when you're going to turn when you're actually playing the game, and the concealment isn't all that great. Now if we get into some stats, the Frederick Globe has the worst win rate, or it's almost the worst win rate of any tier 9 battleship at around 48.54%. The only worst ship is the Azumo at 48.26%. I think this makes it worse when you consider the fact that the Frederick Globe, the Azumo is a bit of an oddity at tier 9 because the turrets and the kind of just the layout of the ship makes it seem really weird, and I think that would throw off a lot of players who actually play the ship, and could be a reason why its win rate actually goes down as low as below the Frederick Globe. Whereas the Frederick Globe actually plays pretty kind of standard battleship, and there's a lot more, its win rates, I think the win rate's a lot more indicative of the ship quality in the Frederick Globe's case than it would be of the Azumo's case. So that being said, if we look at the average damage, we see that the Frederick Globe actually has the worst average damage out of all tier 9 BBs, with 55,009 damage, which is, that's actually really bad. So I'm just going to give some final opinions on the ship. I think I've talked enough about it now. I think my opinion is pretty clear on this. It is a bigger Bismarck effectively, still purpose built for pushing, but the advantage in secondary battery really starts to falter at this tier, with the Azumo catching up to her, and both her and the Ohio being easily capable of bow tanking this ship. Her even worse turning circle makes her even more vulnerable to torpedoes too. Her larger guns make her a little bit better on the battle line, but overall, the Frederick Gross it's a kind of a ship stuck between two different playstyles. Obviously, you're going to be matched against tier 10, where you're completely outclassed. It's just this ship's like too much like playing the Bismarck. And I'm not saying that's inherently a bad thing, but for me, it's something I just want to leave behind and let the Bismarck be the kind of unique ship of the line. But the last thing I want to say about this ship is that get me to the Groza curve first as quickly as possible, and even then, it's probably not going to be a good thing. Alright, so moving on to number one on the list. So I had some deliberations and thoughts to myself. I was kind of thinking about, which ship should I actually put at number 1, and I found it pretty difficult because there's a lot of bad ships in the game. After long deliberations, I decided to put the Prince Idle Frederick at the number 1 worst battleship in the entire game. Now I know it might be a premium ship, but I just felt it was just too bad to leave off the list, so I decided to put it at number 1. Now, and there's so much I could say that's bad about this ship, but I'm just going to touch on two main aspects here: the guns and the armor. So you might think the Prince Idle Frederick is actually pretty accurate. Generally, it's not all that much accurate. So it basically has the same German dispersion formula, which recently got buffed. So I don't know if this actually applies to German premiums also, or if it was just text-free ships, but I'm going to assume it wasn't. It also has a 2.0 Sigma, so in comparison, it's basically the same as the Scharnhorst. And from playing the Scharnhorst, I don't really see it being all that much of a striking example of an accurate ship. It does have a decent amount of barrels, and the rate of fire is pretty decent, but it doesn't do on any of these things particularly well, and there's better ships that you could reasonably get that would actually do all these things probably better. Now if you look at the shells, her AP shell is absolutely complete garbage for the tier and for the caliber. She only slightly outpenetrates the Scharnhorst below 10 kilometers, and past that the Scharnhorst has significantly smaller guns overtake the Prince Frederick shells. Now this wouldn't be much of a problem if she had relatively bad penetration, but in absolute terms it's complete garbage. The US standard ships of this tier have about 350, 343 belt armor, while the Bayern has about 350. Having only just about enough penetration at 10 kilometers to get through this at 0° angle is really, really bad. And this means you're just gonna shatter against same tier battleship belts. When you do pen, the shit caliber basically means the damage is so underwhelming. The 350mm Alpha being bad wouldn't be a problem if she had 12 guns, but she's stuck with 8. Basically the same as German Tech 3 ships. The HE shell is generally not worth bothering with at all, because basically you're playing a battleship. There's no real reason to have it unless you're a British BB. It's perfectly German in that it gets better HE pen with piss poor Alpha, and when you can't expect more than 1 to 3 shells to actually hit it, it's just so tragic. Basically summing this all up, the guns, they have no punch, very low barrel count, and really poor accuracy. The damage output of this ship is horrifically small. On top of that, her guns are pretty slow to turn. 4 degrees per second is not lightning. So when you combine all these kind of semi-bad things together, it just makes the ship feel really, really bad. So if we move on to armor, there was one thing I want to say about the Prince Frederick that I can't say about any other German BB, and that's the fact that it does not have a turtleback. I'm pretty sure this is the only German battleship in the game that lacks a turtleback. I could be wrong, maybe some lower tiers don't have a turtleback, but I'm pretty sure when you get to these tiers, every German battleship has a turtleback except for the Prince Frederick. And that being said, she's not going to eat citadels, on the same scale of like a cruiser or something like the Vanguard, but this ship needs all the help it can get. And being so vulnerable to citadels consistently really doesn't really help. Her bow armor doesn't cover quite enough for her bow to actually make her noticeably tanky against 15-inch armor ships, which there's quite a few at this tier spread. Her main belt is about 300mm thick, but it's also more or less completely submerged, so in effect it's basically the 270m upper belt, which is her main belt, which isn't stellar value for the tier, and most battleships just laugh their way through your belt. And again, I'm really digging so hard to look for something good about this ship. I'm sure there is, but it's just overwhelmed by the really bad aspects. But that being said, overall impressions, I think from the community as a whole, this is one of the most hated ships in the entire game, and for good reason. If the things I just listed previously were any indication of playing the ship, then it's going to be like pulling teeth. Now, I don't want to comment on how it feels to play this ship because I haven't actually had all that much experience in it, but to be honest, the only real redeeming feature about this ship is the fact that it's a premium ship. So at the end of the game, you actually feel a little bit better about yourself when you get a little bump in credits and XP. But that being said, that's the top 3 battleships that I think are the worst in the game. You might disagree, you might not agree with some of the decisions I made. Let me know what you think in the comments anyways, and I'll see you in the next one.